I'm getting something on the distress channel.
Under the neutral zone in 1 minute, Captain.
Now entering the neutral zone.
Hi, this is the Neutral Zone. We know where and what and when is supposed to happen now on Discovery in the next episode. Will any of that actually happen? We'll find out. Hi, I'm John. Josh is unfortunately not able to join me today, so I wanted to get a review up as soon as possible. He'll have a review, I'm sure, in a few days when he can get back in and get one together. But I wanted to get something off immediately after this episode to talk about Episode 13, Such Sweet Sorrow. I don't like self-righteous Star Trek or any kind of Star Trek podcast or podcast in general. But, you know, a lot of people are saying I told you so about different things. I'm going to say I told you so on one issue. A few episodes ago, about mid-season, we learned Michelle Paradise was joining not only the writing team, but she's a co-executive producer, and we learned next year she will be one of the executive producers along with Alex Kurtzman. A lot of podcasts went out there and said, she has no experience in science fiction. She doesn't know Star Trek. This just shows that the show's going to suck even worse. And I said, hold on. I've been in television for 35 years. I've been doing some short films. I've done a lot of documentaries. Have nothing to do with science fiction. Small town America stuff, romantic comedies. So if you look at my IMDb, you're going to say, this guy doesn't know anything about Star Trek. Even though I've watched it my whole life and I know, eat, sleep, and drink this stuff. So I said, be careful. Michelle Paradise might actually have the chops and is actually probably pretty good. And sure enough, that episode, as all of her episodes so far, have been outstanding. I give that a warp 10. She beautifully constructed a great episode 13, and we presume obviously 14 is coming up. So I want to break some of that down in today's brief chat. I also want to talk about the Enterprise. We've got to get into that and that incredible production design they did with that. But I'm going to give this episode a warp 10. I think it was as good as it gets. It was on the level. It was on the level of Best of Both Worlds to some extent. It was there was just a lot there, and it was really good. So I'm going to try to break this down. I don't want to run through every single nook and cranny of the show because we assume you've seen it, you like things about it, but I just want to highlight things that I picked up on. First of all, they connected the dots. This was all about simple plots, and as I refer to the big things I talk about all the time on our podcast, the Enterprise or Discovery or whatever ship we're dealing with needs to be putting out fires, and we need to be using science in our science fiction, and that's what this episode had a lot of. I also say with Discovery, I want to see a lot of Pike, I want to see Saru, I want to see Reno, and we got all that in this episode. And it wasn't just a mishmash of subplots that didn't have any points. Obviously, we begin on the Discovery. We're going to blow up the Discovery to get rid of this. I'm going to call it AI. Maybe it's not AI, but the AI that's on Discovery that they can't get out and can't purge it. So everybody transfers to the Enterprise. We'll get into that in a minute. But the build-up to the moment where they're going to auto-destruct the Discovery, I was sitting back, and I had to think when Pike said, eyes forward, there'll never be another one like her. And I thought, are they really going to blow this up? Is this? And I had that moment. I thought they can't possibly do it, but there was enough. They did enough of the stuff to make me think, is it really going to happen? And it didn't, but it was well done. You can make a person like me who's knows that they can't blow up the ship think for a minute, I wonder if they're going to blow it up. Great writing. Well done. So then that starts off the new fire we have to put out. We've got to send Discovery into the future. We have to do jumper cables to the time crystal. They have a great couple of meetings on the Enterprise. One with George, who gets told, I thought there was no such thing as a bad idea. No, that was a bad idea. Great line. And then another line in the next meeting with the girl, Poe, I believe her name is, where Giorgio's got the ice cream and says, take this vile, syrupy substance or whatever she said. Great lines. When you have a very intense episode and those little comic moments, that's great. I thought the Stamets and Dr. Hugh moment was good. I think they're kind of establishing some stuff here. I don't know if that means that Hugh is off the show now and is now going to be part of the Enterprise crew, or how they're going to do that. It did feel like a goodbye, but, nothing means goodbye anymore. So the episode becomes basically in two parts from that point forward. The jump starting the time crystal and dealing with the flash aheads to the potential destruction and killing of everybody on the Discovery. And then the other one, which is everybody saying goodbye to Burnham. And some very team-building, strong moments with everyone on the ship. That honestly, I wish we could see more of them occasionally in those roles, but it was good. This was the kind of stuff I like to see. Burnham saying goodbye was very good. I thought that was, again, it's leading up to where are we going with this. So, and to the credit to many people, I've been saying for some time I thought they would have to go back in time to do a Star Trek First Contact situation where they would go back in time to correct the future. They're going to go forward in time to correct the present. A lot of people picked that up. A lot of people saw that in Calypso. I just couldn't wrap my head around Calypso and how they were doing that. It was just such a strange thing. But now it made sense once we saw the time crystals. We had a feeling that was going to come up. But I also know when you do writing and when you do shows and when you do Star Trek, you sometimes throw things out there to get people misdirected. So I wasn't quite sure, but my props to a lot of Star Trek fans who said they were going to go in the future. You got it. Looks like that's where they're heading. What does this put with Burnham? This feels like they're writing her off the show, and I'm sure a lot of people in the Star Trek world who hate this Discovery is all excited. I don't think they're. I will again repeat what we said when they killed off the Doctor last year, and when they killed off Arium this year. Star Trek doesn't kill off anyone. They always end up bringing them back. And I don't think for a moment Burnham is going to be gone off the show. There's been no words in the trade magazine. She is on every single poster, every single electronic banner that CBS All Access has with Discovery. So, and she's in the promos with all the other actors, with all the other big series that CBS has online. So I don't believe there's any reason to believe Burnham is gone. Maybe she'll disappear for an episode, but I don't think she is still the star of Discovery, and I don't think that's going to change next season. One prediction I'm going to give, though, is obviously we know Spock stayed on board Discovery. He's supposed to go into the future, but we see in the trailer for episode 14, he's in a shuttlecraft. So I'm going to predict this. As far as where I think episode 14 is going to go. As much as I would enjoy a 56-minute space battle with the two ships and all the Section 20 or Section 31 ships, I don't think that's going to happen. But somehow there will be a battle. I think it'll probably take up a good part of the first part of the episode. Burnham will have struggles because if you remember, the time crystal's not charged up yet. They're going to wait. They're going to have to give them some time. Kind of reminiscent a little bit of yesterday's Enterprise, where the Enterprise D had to fight off the Klingons in order to give time for the Enterprise C to go back into a wormhole. I think this is what we're going to see this week. A lot of battles, a lot of fun, a little delay, and then Spock and Burnham go out for him to get into the wormhole, and somehow he doesn't end up in that wormhole, and Spock remains on the Enterprise. So I think that's the connection to that. I don't know what's going on with Ethan Peck. There's no indications they've dropped him from season 3, so maybe all of this is going to happen, and then season 3 starts with the Discovery coming back from being 1,000 years ahead of us. I think season 3 taking place with the limited crew that they have now on the Discovery in the future, which is a little bit Voyager-esque in the sense that they're away from everybody, having to survive in an area of space they don't know anything about, is fascinating. And the fact that they could get their spore drive running again and pop around in the future would make for a great way to put this series, in a place that I could say I could buy that. These are people from the original Star Trek timeline who've been sent ahead in time, 900 years. And we're going to follow their adventure actually exploring planets, which they haven't done in this season so far, and doing Star Trek stuff. That would be great. That would be a fun way that we all could get on board this little adventure. That's just my quick outline. I thought there's just nothing I can say about this episode that I didn't like. The pacing, the way it moved, the way the characters interacted with each other, the way Pike handled everything, and the way Saru continues to show himself as the captain. And what's the one part that was kind of weird was when Pike says to Saru, "I'm going to miss you," and I'm like, "You never spent any time with Saru?" But we're just going to assume somewhere they, played cards or something, and spent some time together. So, let's talk about the Enterprise. And again, I talked about this last week. The production team for Discovery, they're insane. So, let me walk you through a few things that I noticed. I'm sure you have your notes, and please send them. I'd love to see them as well. The worst Enterprise bridge refit that they ever did, I think, was the one where Scotty was on the Next Generation. It looked bad. They tried hard, but that was a low-budget show, too. And I didn't think that bridge looked right. It looked like it had carpet on the floor. It just didn't look right. When Deep Space Nine came in and redid it, it was much more legitimate, because especially since they were merging it with the footage from the original series. So I really think this bridge was phenomenal because they used the wire mesh. You saw that in the corridors. You saw the little click thing that they used in the turbo lift. The bridge, if anything I had to criticize about the bridge, is it's almost too busy. A couple times I wish I could have just grabbed the camera through the monitor and said, "Stop, hold it for a second. I need to look at this. I can't," because we're turning and lens flaring. But the bridge was great. But the things I noticed on the bridge, I mentioned this in a couple of the memes this week, is the chairs are just dead on, original series. The chairs that the captain's chair was slightly altered, but it looked nice. If you notice, you had big panels that were, I'm sure, LED screens that they used, that were the main interfaces for the crew. But then above it was a row of yellow and red and green displays, which are the color scheme and look of the original series. And they didn't have to do that. It actually made it look busier. But when you saw that, it instantly, to me, was a tip of the cap to the original series. I saw posts from people online that said they cried when they saw the bridge. I didn't cry, but I smiled ear to ear. And here's my reason for why I think this was such an emotional thing for a lot of people. The original series was the original series, and anything that's ever been connected to the original series has been a duplicate of that. When Next Generation and Enterprise and all those guys did their revisits back to the original ship, they tried to keep it to that original. The movies came out, completely different look, completely different bridge, and basically that has set the style for Star Trek for decades now. This is the first time we're going back to the original canon of Star Trek with the original nacelles and the original design, but updated, and to keep the 60s look, but update it in such a way that you can say without a doubt, I know this bridge. So the things I noticed, obviously the helm console, very cool looking, but it had the little red alert light that we all are familiar with. They used it in close-ups many times in the original series. It was there. It was nice. These are things that the JJ movies did not attempt to even do. They just did it their own way. The JJ movie bridges were really, they seemed to be wide and kind of fat and not circular. This was a great looking bridge. The little details like the red alert light on that. I think everybody noticed it had the bridge plaque on the right, on the camera right side of the turbo lift. It was a different plaque, but it was authentic to the original text and everything that was on it. The lights that I mentioned before. And my compliments to the director and the director of photography. There are 3 or 4 standard shots in the original series. Typically, the camera is what we would call on the port side looking in, where typically Kirk and the turbo lift kind of behind him with that lighting effect of the mesh behind him. They didn't use those angles very much at all in the movies, but they did in this, and I appreciate it. They wanted those of us who are original series fans to say, These are the shots. Here. Let us give you perspective of the bridge to see that this is the bridge for Disco Prize, if you will, and how it relates to the bridge of the original Enterprise. It's a larger bridge, but it still felt really cool. It felt really nice. And the Giorgio line of orange, really, it was great. I just really think well thought out. I think if you noticed, the conference room had the tri-screen monitor in it. It was subtle. They didn't try to push the stuff down your throat. The torpedo sounds were authentic. And the thing I really liked about this was, and I think this is appropriate, the look that Pike had when he got back on the Enterprise. And for all intents and purposes, what they had created through this is we all felt like Pike. Those of us who like the Discovery ship have gotten used to it. We like it. We get its little nuances. When he walked aboard the Enterprise and he took that moment to look at the crew and see the people helping out each other, and he had a smile on his face, maybe they intended that to be I'm proud of my crew, but I really took it as I'm really glad to be back on my ship. And I think for all Star Trek fans, we all lived in that moment with him. It's like, I'm back on the Enterprise. This is the new cool Enterprise that we wish we could have had in 1966, but here it is 50 years later, and that's pretty cool. So I can't say enough to how nice that looked. And does that mean there should be a Captain Pike spinoff? I would watch it. I would watch it a lot. I would hesitate to say, unfortunately, and despite the fact I say we're a pro-Discovery podcast, I would watch it with more interest in Discovery because, let's face it, Enterprise is what Star Trek has been about. I wasn't a fan of Deep Space Nine. Voyager was okay, but I like the shows where the Enterprise is the prime ship and the prime subject. The Enterprise has always been considered a character. If they came up with a Pike spin-off series with this ship and this crew, I would love it. I would enjoy it, and I think it would be a lot of fun. So to summarize, I believe what we're going to see is a battle next week. Spock is going to get spun off somehow and not go into the wormhole. He's going to be left to remain on the Enterprise. Discovery and its reduced crew will go through the wormhole, be 900 years in the future. And this is where, you could say it could go a couple different ways, but I'm going to say if it was my way and it was my choice, keep Discovery in the future for this next season. Bring it back at the end. It's basically a Voyager-style show where it's in the future. They're doing things. They're helping people. I don't know. And then they come back. Of course, it doesn't make sense for them to come back because they would know the future and it would be bad. But we'll see what happens. If you're new to Neutral Zone, thanks for watching us. We will continue to do podcasts after the episode 14 runs. We want to do several discussions, not only about Star Trek. We want to weave in some other sci-fi and do some comparisons to what's going on with Star Trek. But there are more series coming out. The Picard series, a lot of things are happening. We'll follow the fallout after episode 14, and we're hoping that we may see some of you at some of the conventions coming up as well. So please continue to follow us, continue to share us. We think we have a lot to offer, and we do try to respond to all the comments that we get on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else. But again, we'll see you next week when this all comes to a Season 2 conclusion right here in the Neutral Zone.